Good morning, Miss Wagner. Today I'll be recording my English assignment about an Indigenous Australian from the Secret River called Ndugu. Ndugu is an Indigenous Australian from the early 1800s who had witnessed the events of the Secret River firsthand as a villager near the house of William Thornhill. He acted as an observer to the settlement of the white population and holds a large form of resentment towards the white people. As a child, Ndugu was rambunctious and curious, exploring the Australian landscape and fulfilling the traditional rituals of the Indigenous culture. He was there before the mass invasion of British settlers. Alone, he watched the lush greenery of the Australian forests be chopped down by settlers and claiming their land. He tried to run when he was cornered by these new citizens of Australia. He was one of the many that tried to reason with William Thornhill during settlement, but because of his language, this was in vain. This forced him to find refuge in Thomas Blackwood, who understands his native tongue. Ndugu was one of the very few Indigenous Australians to have escaped during the massacre at the end of the Secret River. Despite this, our titular character wasn't able to escape with his wife and child, who were killed during this conflict. This led Ndugu's curiosity to turn to fear towards the white race, but as he ages, this slowly turns into rage and hatred. This led Ndugu's curiosity to turn to... At the time of the monologue, Ndugu is a bitter old man at the age of 60 years old. He has a nasty habit of becoming incredibly enraged when discussing the white invasion. This is mainly because of how he was affected during the massacre by Thornhill, which occurs at the end of the book. Due to his cultural background, Ndugu's thoughts are detached and lack construction. He often speaks in abstract terms in place of taking a more literal vernacular. When I was a boy, my clan roamed these lands. The grass was green, the bushland was thriving and prosperous. We were a free people. Nomadic. My people lived off the land. We had free reign. We shifted and adapted as the land we lived in changed. We were hunters. Travelers, survivors. Everything was good. That was before the white men came. They arrived on ships of wood carriages for the potential slaughter. They came in by the hundreds. Some were covered in red sheets, brandishing sticks that harnessed thunder. Many were covered in dirty rags, hands held together with links of metal. Dirt and blood concealed their identities. Most of them were traded off to other men in cleaner clothes. I believe that these sorts of men may have been taken here against their own will. Cockatoos caught in a hot sandstorm, flapping about in panic, trying to escape to no avail. There were often other men, the ones who owned the men in dirty rags, like sandstorms, destroying all that gets in its path to make way for a foundation of its own. Get off my land, black man. You stupid fucking nigger. Like sandstorms, loud and angry. They say there were no signs that the blacks felt that the place belonged to them. They had no fences that said this is mine, no house that said this is our home. There were no fields or flocks that said we have put the labor of our hands into this place. I discovered that these white men think very different to us. They see this world as theirs to be taken, but they never give back. There were so many of them that came, I can't remember being as scared as I was then. there was one of the whites that I knew of. The man of mystery. Like the stars at night, he was one of the many that took a part of our land. A violent and ferocious man. Wild-eyed dingo. His name was William Thornhill. Blackwood had told me about him, that he was a good man, but I saw a fire in him from the moment our sights met. Thornhill was a rat scurrying away from the light, hiding from the torch of his past self, where parts of him hid in the darkness, others shined in the spotlight. His greed and anger were on display for all to see. It had consumed him. He was drawn to our land, searching for meaning, a purpose. But all he found was violence and hatred. In the years that he lived near our tribe, he rarely exchanged senses. He did not hear our voice. We could not hear his. He built structures of wood that I had never seen, put seeds in the dirt whose I had never tasted. I was curious of his way of life. I wanted to learn, but the more Blackwood explained it to me, the less it made sense. Unfortunately, Thornhill wasn't as curious about our ways as I was of his. He resented our culture. Thankfully, this didn't pass down onto his offspring. His boy was always visiting us, eager to learn, the little galah. Maybe it was our fault. We burnt his crops and walked upon his land. We assumed he would know our ways. We assumed that he would understand. How wrong we were. He had left our tribe 10 years ago. Too much thunder, too much lightning. My wife and child were swept up in the storm. I now live here, where the lightning can't strike me.